Hi everyone, and welcome to the Illustration Department podcast. My name is Giuseppe Castellano. In this podcast, I talk to folks in illustration, graphic design, publishing, animation, and other creative fields about their work, the lessons they've learned, and the bumps and bruises they've experienced along the way. In this episode, my guest is author, illustrator, and character designer, Matthew Forsythe. Do you, dear illustrator, like your creative work? This question hits a nerve for a lot of us, me included. As Matthew and I discuss, it can take work to like your work. Among other topics, we talk about the many forms a picture book can take, from morality books to fantastic binomials. Matthew shares advice on how to make sense of color. And if you find it difficult to like your work, you'll want to hear what Matthew has to say. I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Sometimes I think about design as the task is putting things in front of other things, right? So like, where does the arm go? Where does this, where does the sleeve go in relation to the arm? Where is everything in space? So I think about that constantly, even though when I work in picture books, I work kind of graphically, or when I do paintings in traditional media, I'm still thinking about volume all the time. And that's drilled into me from working in animation.
Yeah.
In terms of story, worked on hundreds of episodes now, and it's very highly structured. It's a 3-act structure. Every episode is a 3-act structure. And so it's kind of, I think it feels a little goofier when you watch it, but they're all quite nailed down in terms of 3-act structure. And it starts to be hard to think in any other way after.
What does a 3-act structure mean? You mean like 3 acts per episode?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 acts per episode. Yeah.
Wow, pulled that one out of my rear.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting little aside. I don't know if you noticed, but I just hit start recording. Did you notice that?
No, I didn't notice. I'm looking off into space instead of
You and I had
focusing.
like a lovely 3 minutes of conversation, and then I was looking at the interface that I'm still getting used to, and I was realizing I'm not recording a goddamn thing, am I? So I just hit start recording. So for people listening going like, what is Matthew talking about? We're talking about his work on Adventure Time as a lead designer. And I was also, while you were there at the same time, I was the art director for Cartoon Network Books. And that's where we started our conversation, the connection that we had there. And now we're back. Yeah, I mean, with animation, I've had plenty of conversations with folks who started off as animators, became children's book creators, vice versa, doing both at the same time. As you know, throughout history, there are plenty of 1930s, 1940s Disney animators that ended up becoming Golden Book illustrators, right? So there's a real blend between animation and illustration. I like to say that they're twins. They're fraternal twins. Do you find that having an animation background has given you an advantage beyond, these lessons that you're learning about volume and shape language and working in that collaborative structure? Do you find that you have an advantage as an animator turned children's book creator?
It was the opposite. I made picture books before I worked in animation. I made a couple books. Yeah.
It's like my research is for shit.
No, it's. I mean, they're kind of very different parts of my brain. Like I don't know if there's any advantage, because I think they're different media. And I think the mistake that could easily be made is like if you just start treating one like the other, you start putting storyboards into picture books, or you start putting picture book fine art into animated scenes. It's not going to work. I think I kind of have to compartmentalize them.
Yeah.
It's funny. A long time ago, there was a Mary Blair exhibit in Montreal. I was working at the film board at the time, doing web management, just working in IT. And it just blew my mind, like just seeing her work. And I'm thinking about it a lot this year because there's that Mary Blair exhibit in San Francisco that just opened. So there's a bit of buzz about her again. Yeah. And just like how monumentally influential she is in both worlds,
To this day.
It's incredible. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like the Beatles or something. She's so, honestly, and every time I see her work, it like reopens this part of my brain that's like, like she's the reason. Like I saw her original gouache paintings back then, probably 15 years ago.
Right.
And I was just like, you can do this with like $10 tubes of paint.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about her work, and I've been looking at her work forever, and I've still, when I'm talking to an illustrator and we're talking about color harmonies or value relationships or using dry brushing, wet brushing, glazing, all these sorts of things, I'm like, let's go check out Mary Blair's stuff real fast. Still surprised. I'm like, oh, right. She did things that like no one was doing at the time. She did things that no one is doing, not no one, but very few people are doing now. Making color decisions that very few, I'm being too exaggerating. More illustrators should be thinking about these unexpected color choices that still work. And that's something that you and I are definitely going to talk about later in the episode. Before we get to that, speaking of children's books, so in Betsy Bird's review of Aggie and the Ghost, which is a recent book of yours from Simon & Schuster, she wrote, "His art just glows on the page. He is some kind of literary genius, capable of fantastic storytelling, utilizing only the barest minimum of words, and he's funny, seriously funny." First of all, there's nothing quite like a book review from Betsy Bird, but that's quite a review. And allow me to say, I think Aggie and the Ghost, the premise of it, is my kind of premise. It feels like, I could be wrong here, but it just feels like to me that we are living in an era of lesson books. Books that feel as though, again, I could be very wrong, please no one come at me, but it does feel as though I've seen this over the last, let's say, handful of years, that the writer, now I'm hesitating saying this because someone's going to cancel me or something, but like it just feels like the writer is saying, do this, don't do that. As if they subconsciously perhaps assume that they know better or are better than the reader. To be clear, I love all kinds of picture books. The literal, the nonfiction, the day in the life, goofy, somber, all of it. For folks listening, there is room for all of it. There really is. Fantasy, fairy tales, not whatever it is that you want to do. For me, personally, my favorite ones are the ones in which there is plenty of room for me, the reader, to relate, to project, to wonder, like, what did that mean? If anything. Maybe it didn't mean anything, but I'm going to think about it. I want to finish a picture book and go, what was this book really about? Right? Like my favorite example, I use this example with mentees, illustrator mentees. Ferdinand is not a book about a bull who wants to just chill. It's a book about not conforming to what society defines you as. Society says you should be one thing and you're saying, no, I'm going to choose my own way. That's what Ferdinand is about. Ferdinand, the fact that there's a bull, that's just the vehicle. Where the Wild Things Are, that's just a vehicle for what I think the book is really about, and that's discovering independence. It's a coming-of-age story. It's about unconditional love. It's not about a freaking kid in a boat and a monster. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm going to step down from my little soapbox here. I don't even know if I have a question for you, but see where I'm coming from with this? Like, am I wrong? It feels a little puritanical these days.
I find it strange. The moralism in picture books is a little strange because the assumption is that picture book authors are moral, like somehow like priests or like moral guides
Arbiters?
for
is that the right word?
Arbiters? Moral guides for society. It's like, welcome to our world. Let me guide you around. Like, what qualifications do we have to do that in the first place?
Right, exactly.
I know. I also think like the idea of lesson books. I think there's probably a big place for them. I think like parents seem to use them as tools. But if we're talking about art is just about communicating emotion for me. And it's what is the emotional, if you're at the MoMA or if you're listening to a band or it's just like what is the emotional moment? What are we sharing emotionally?
Right.
I think you said it already. What is the book about? It's about a girl and a ghost. But what is it really about? What's it really about? What's the emotional moment that it's about. And, I think there's a few answers to that, but even if we did say like picture books should be these like tools for children to learn how to live, like, I don't know, like all art teaches us about, emotional communication. So in that sense, it's super useful in that way. If it needs, I don't think it needs to be useful, but yeah.
Right.
Anyway, yeah, there's a lot, it is strange. I do think like picture books have always been like moral tools and, tools for teaching, and that's
right.
Fine. But I think sometimes the best ones find another way to layer that with emotional communication too,
Exactly.
There's an amazing counting book by Tanya Tagaq in Canada that just came out. It's counting polar bears, but there's something deep happening beneath just the counting. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm like, you're like, this art is timeless, and this, you can feel there's some kind of like environmental, emotional layer to it that's really profound. And it's not just, it's not just counting polar bears, but it's like really incredible. Anyway, I could talk about this all day. So, yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's a more diplomatic way of saying what I'm trying to say. Let's not assume that a picture book has to teach a kid something. If you want there to be a lesson, leave room for them to pick that lesson up or not. Let it not be what it was in the beginning. I mean, 175 years ago, when picture books were like talk about Puritans, like the Puritan approach to picture books, to children's books, was literally, this is a book meant to teach kids how to behave. And then we go to like late 19th century, Caldecott comes around, Bahadur, then a little bit further down the line, you have Wanda, and picture books become this other thing. It's like, Wanda Gog is like, I'm going to do a picture book about a bunch of cats eating each other.
I'll stop you there, actually, because I think fairy tales historically are just like how we all behave. Those were just stories that we would tell to adults and children historically around the fire. These are not. I think it's probably a relatively post-industrial thing where we're like, let's package this for children. And when we were kids, Giuseppe, like the stories we were told were super dark. And like if you look at like, stories about donkeys turning into pebbles, like that's an existential hell.
William Steig has put many of us into therapy.
Yeah, it's terrifying when you like. That's one of the most terrifying concepts you can think of.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if that would get printed today.
Or Pinocchio. I mean, that's a pretty terrifying story.
But I do think the best remedy for there's kind of this conversation in the comic space right now, like comics and graphic novels, about like, is everything just like a moralistic lesson?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the best thing is maybe not to complain about it, but to try and make something good.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's always been the best response, I think, is try and make something good.
Yeah, and gosh, I don't even know where I started with this. I basically started with like, I love the premise of like a book just being about, going to bed. This is a book about how beautiful it is in the middle of July at twilight. There's no specific book I have in mind, but like those are the kinds of books that I really love. For example, I'm working with an illustrator right now who is putting together a book dummy, and all this book is this part of the house's experience with a family through several seasons. That's it. And it's a freaking beautiful book. And I cannot wait for it to come out. It will get published. I would be shocked if this doesn't get picked up. Anyway, moving on. Speaking of fairy tales, you were asked by Claudia of Enchanted Lion, Claudia Bedrick. Or is it Bedrick?
Yeah, it's Bedrick, yeah.
Yeah. To illustrate Johnny Rodari's The Grammar of Fantasy. The full title is The Grammar of Fantasy, An Introduction to the Art of Inventing Stories. Rodari, for folks listening who aren't familiar, is considered to be the father of modern Italian children's literature. Going a little further, I think his philosophy of storytelling is comparable to Sendak's, which is to say, respect and honor the supreme creativity and complexity of a child. Embrace imperfection. It's more about how there's music and love and art and mystery and answers and questions and all of that in storytelling, in good storytelling. There can be. So the question, I guess, for you, I should maybe ask you a few questions from time to time, is what's one thing you picked up from Rodari's text while illustrating this thing? Which, by the way, for me, would be like intimidating as hell. If Claudia came to me and said, you need to illustrate Rodari's text, I'm like, oh my God, pass.
Yeah, I didn't know when, it was, first of all, it was a long time ago. We talked about this about 5 years ago. It was pre-pandemic.
Right.
I didn't know anything about Rodari. I didn't know what, the significance of the book was, but she sent me the text and she obviously gave me a backgrounder. And I think I read 2 pages and I was like immediately excited about it because I just feel like all the things, you said, your description was right on about how just the respect for storytelling and for kids, and also the level of play. Like this book is like a book of games, and so it's so playful, and also and it's also a deep philosophical treatise, and so it's like, and I actually didn't study art, but I did study philosophy in university, so I really like connected with the way he was talking about the work. Yeah. I think I probably took it too seriously. I mean, it took us 5 years to do. There are a lot of reasons like supply chain issues, and we had to get a translation update. Mm-hmm. But also, I think I did like 3 or 4 different covers for the book. I just was never happy with it. But yeah, it was just like, what an honor, And also, it was something that I could do and be playful and respond to the text with illustrations. It was like a total joy to work on, actually. And Claudia was super flexible about we had long conversations about layout and approach and printing and design. It was, super happy with the whole project.
Is there something like, as you were reading it, was there something that you're like, oh wow, I need to pay attention to that?
Yeah, well, I had already made I made a book called Poco on the Drum, and then we started working on this book. And when I was making Poco on the Drum, I was thinking about the separation between image and text, and within the text, the distance between ideas. And then when you look at Rodari's book, he's all about putting 2 ideas together. He has this essay called The Fantastic Binomial, and he says if you put 2 ideas together, the frisson between them creates story. And that's where story comes from, is the energy between 2 ideas or more.
Love that.
Every picture book artist knows this, which is that there's the energy between the idea and then the image, So then the image is a different story, and then the text. So it's a complete interplay between, and then there's the energy between one page and the next page. And so Rodari was articulating really eloquently this basic sort of atomic rule for storytelling, which was really exciting to me, because it was kind of like, I didn't understand it or know how to put it into words, but it was what I was playing with Poco on the Drum. And then it was like exciting to see it, expressed so beautifully. And then he starts talking about Paul Klee, and Paul Klee is like, that's how I learned to paint, was studying, just copying Paul Klee paintings over and over and over again. And like trying to understand how Paul Klee layered colors and put colors beside each other to sort of lead the eye through a painting. And then you can take that you can see the lineage from Paul Klee to Mary Blair. It's almost like one step from Paul Klee to the It's a Small World murals. It's so close. And
I never thought of it that way, but
it's so right. She's clearly influenced by Bauhaus, right? Yeah. For me, it was this is the genesis of what we're doing. So it was super exciting. Oh. Yeah, this idea about 2 ideas, the fantastic binomial, I think is interesting. I remember when I was starting to write, I'd have a character I liked.
Right.
It kind of wasn't going anywhere, and I was like, why isn't this? This character looks so interesting. How come the story is not flowing, or how come the story's not coming out of this character? And it's because it was just one idea. I needed something for the character to be up against, or I needed some contrast against that, character. Yep. Binomial and the idea of polarity that opened that door for me, really.
Can you give us one example of like a binomial? Quick example that illustrators can take with them, maybe to
Rodari,
the next portfolio piece, let's say.
Yeah, Rodari uses, and the exercise he uses with students is dog closet. So 2 words, dog and closet.
Instantly.
Instantly, like how did the dog get in the closet? We all have different answers, right? Our life experiences, our emotional relationship with dogs and closets a story will come out of that.
100%.
And then, but the other examples he uses are like puppet and father. To some people, that's Pinocchio. To someone else, it might be a completely different story.
Sure.
For me, frog and drum, for Poco and the drum, for Aggie and the ghost, it's girl and her shadow. What are the 2 energies at play in anything? And you can kind of start to see, you can see it everywhere. Once you start looking at every great film, every great book, these energies are everywhere.
Interestingly, not that I'm like, I don't know, patting myself on the back or anything, but one of the assignments I like giving out to illustrators is take just a human trait, a mental state, just how we behave. Pick one, pick anything, neat freak, slob, nervous wreck. Take that and then take an animal, just pick any animal and mash them together and create an illustration. So my favorite example is like curious hippo or OCD frog. There have been a lot of really great results that have come from that. So I don't know if that's a fantastic binomial, but that's I'll call it a passable binomial. That's what I'll call that one.
Well, also, I think it's like we always will relate to emotional. If you read like Olivia, you're like, we just love her emotional state,
Yeah, right.
And we can just follow her anywhere. It doesn't matter what she's doing, If she's Olivia versus the museum, Olivia versus the beach.
Yeah, it's not about the fact that she's a pig. It's her personality that we relate to, we connect with. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's that emotional, like you're applying, I think.
There's a great quote of Rodari, and it goes like this. Fairy tales are useful to mathematics, just as mathematics are useful to fairy tales. They are also useful to poetry, music, political engagement. In sum, they are useful for everyone and not just for the dreamer. They're in service of the complete human being. If a society based on the myth of productivity and on the reality of profit needs only half-formed human beings, loyal executors, diligent imitators, and docile instruments without a will of their own, that means there is something wrong with this society and it needs to be changed post-haste. To change it, creative human beings are needed. People who know how to make full use of the imagination.
It's incredible.
Speaking of Paul Klee, my sister-in-law apparently has a rug. Well, not apparently. She has a rug that is apparently designed by Paul Klee.
Oh.
I don't know if that's true. I haven't spent any time like researching, did Paul Klee design rugs? Or did someone just take a Paul Klee piece and put it on a rug? It doesn't look like any Paul Klee art I've ever seen.
Right.
That doesn't mean anything. I'm going to see her in a couple of weeks. I'll ask her, like, whatever happened to that Paul Klee rug?
I believe it. I mean, he was super playful, like, right? You see, he worked in many different media, and often you'd see, like, some pen drawing that he did, and it doesn't look like anything else he's done.
Yeah.
He was also, like Rodari, he was, like, super into the idea of just playing around.
This podcast is produced by the Illustration Department, a global leader in online education for illustrators. Visit illustrationdept.com for offerings like mentorships and portfolio reviews, testimonials, our alumni showcase, our best-selling Substack, and more. That's illustrationdept.com. And now, back to our conversation. In talking about your process a couple of years ago, you said you feel like you're at a place where you can speak in sentences with color. I love that phrasing, speak in sentences with color. Not entirely sure what that means. Can you expand on that?
Oh, I don't remember saying that, but
you definitely did.
That's quite arrogant. He's quite full of himself.
Who's that jerk?
Well, I don't know. You know, there's a great, to keep harping on Klee, but there's a great quote. He went to Egypt and he did all these paintings. And I remember in his diary, there's a day where he's like, where he literally says, "Oh, I finally get it," you know. And I do remember studying his work.
To that point
yeah, well, I remember like after studying his work for months and finally being like, "Oh, like I get it now." And it's just like being able to like convey what you want, knowing when a painting is done, you know, express what you want to say.
Right.
For me, painting was a tool for storytelling, right? For the books that I'm making. So I'm not like always trying to constantly push the aesthetic, you know, the painting technique, but hopefully I'm pushing things in maybe in different ways, like in the storytelling. Yeah. But yeah, just with color, like I just understanding the sort of the fundamental aspects of it was, you know, it was an exciting time to figure that out and be able, because color was very frustrating for me for a long time. You know, it wasn't something that was easy for me to understand.
But you do have a very like Matthew Forsythe palette. Like one can look at your work and go, that's probably Matthew Forsythe. Is that correct pronunciation of your last name?
It is, yeah.
Okay, because I was listening to a podcast episode someone else had done with you, and he kept calling you Forsythe.
Okay.
I think you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, you said you started off, it was a little bit of a struggle. Working in color gives quite a few illustrators the fits. That is the understatement of the year. I hear this all the time from illustrators. I hear it almost daily. Like I was talking to an illustrator this morning, this is true, who has a great sense of drawing and design, and she's got a lot of strengths there. And there's hardly any color in her portfolio. And the reason was she doesn't quite know what to do with it. So here's this is what I'm trying to set up here is, what advice would you have for folks struggling to make sense of color?
Stop thinking about color. Think about value.
I agree.
If anyone takes like a painting class, I remember I took like an oil painting class.
Yeah.
It was like one of those weekend classes, you know, Sundays, while I was working I used to work for the National Film Board in Canada. And in the Sundays, I would just go and do this oil painting class. And that's where I learned how important value was. Like when you take a painting class, they'll just talk about value, and learning your tones. I remember like Lauren Tamaki, talking to her about going to ACAD, which is a great school in Canada. Mm-hmm. She was saying that they didn't even let them use color until third or fourth year.
Wow.
Because it's not important. People are so worried about hue and names of colors and color wheels and nonsense like that. Just focus on value. If you're getting the values right, and I remember Jasmine, this artist at Cartoon Network, she's an amazing painter. Mm-hmm. And she was like, all color is just personal. It's a personal decision. The value's what's super important. So that would be my advice. Focus on value, get the values right, and then, you know, colors, whatever.
Anyone who's ever taken a mentorship with me or has talked to me about their work through a portfolio review has heard me say literally what you just said. And it's not like anything where, you know, we've made up these past few years. This goes way back to the Griset technique, the Renaissance, the Baroque painters. They painted in one tone. They usually used burnt umber or sienna or something, and painted in one value, and then they glazed color over it.
Look at someone like, but like Isabel.
Don't interrupt me.
A footnote. This is a footnote to your point. I want you to continue.
No, I'm good. What's up?
But like Isabel Arsenault, she does books in black and white, and she'll have one point of saturation at a focal area. Mm-hmm. People will be like, "Wow, her colors are amazing," and it's like, this image is black and white. You know, like and her colors are amazing. She is a genius, but you know, it's about like restraint.
Exactly.
People think way too much about hue and chroma, and that's very distracting.
Yeah. I do use the color wheel, but only when I discuss things like a triadic palette where you want to have like a primary color, a secondary analogous color, perhaps, and then a third accent color. Being more intentional, being more limited. One of my favorite words to use is counterbalance. If you have, like Isabel Arsenault, like you have these chromatic areas, these areas of saturation and boldness and and stuff in terms of hue, but then it's counterbalanced by all these neutral areas. So that's why the colors seem so vibrant, because there's something to compare it to. Yeah, color is I agree. I think it is personal. Color, though, to be fair to color, you can get this with value and design, but I think color really does do a ton of the heavy lifting when it comes to evoking a mood.
Yeah, and I think that's what Jasmine Lai meant when she said color is personal. I do think that's more of an emotional decision, like, and color story is something I think about a lot. Like, yeah, what's the emotional moment we're trying to convey in this piece? And then what's the movement within the piece, Right. It's easy for us to run to that because it's the emotional thing is the thing that connects with us, but really there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on underneath that, I think, that's more important.
Like if you did a drawing, let's say, I'm just going to do something that most illustrators do for their portfolios. You see this a lot at conferences. There's a kid on the beach playing in the sand, and the ocean is behind the kid. Everyone has that picture in their head right now. That kid could be whatever gender, size, shape, ability, background, whatever you need. There's a kid on a beach, and the ocean's in the background. You've finished the design and the value of it. Complete. It's totally done in black and white. Okay, everyone has that image. Now, if you glaze gray blues over the whole damn thing versus glazing yellows and oranges over the whole damn thing, it's a completely different story. It's a totally different story. The kid is playing on the beach while it's raining around twilight, or the kid is playing on the beach while it's sunny in the middle of July in the afternoon. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And this is probably what you're saying, and you're saying it more eloquently than I am. Storytelling, a lot of the storytelling comes from the color choices.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and we can go a step further too. And like sometimes we'll be in a rainy day in November, and it's a very warm feeling. So painting it, in cool hues is not appropriate. Right. Sometimes.
Right.
It goes in both directions.
Yes, it does. Color is something that I know I can talk to illustrators about all day long. I can talk to you about this for hours and hours. There are ways to work color into a piece, into a conversation, into understanding color. For anyone who wants to read a book about it, The Interaction of Color by Joseph Albers is the first and last book you should be reading about color. But if I'm being honest, when it comes to, like, when an illustrator tells me that they don't like how they draw and paint, they don't like, forget color, just the way they draw, the way they paint. That's a tougher knot to unravel. I wonder if liking your work is a step no one can help you take. I don't know that. Like mentors, teachers, how-tos, videos, whatever. Can help you get better at everything, but liking your own work, I think it's ties into like your relationship with your artistic self and the art you create. How do you know, Matthew, when you like your work?
Well, I mean, there was a long time where I shouldn't have been making art. Like my work was terrible and I didn't like my work and it wasn't good. Right. Like it was uniformly, I think when I look back at the stuff that I was making in my 20s, like in my late 20s, I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing. And there's 10,000 hours is a real thing. Like you really have to put in the work, and you have to not just put in rote work, you have to put in thinking work. Like what am I, the people that I love, what are they doing that I'm not doing, and really deconstruct your work and put it back together. Eventually your work will become better. And then the second part is therapy. For me, my therapist like 10 years ago was like, she was so good at just being like, no negative self-talk. Like this is not going anywhere. It's not useful.
God. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And she would cut me off every time I said something negative, and it wasn't necessarily about work. It was just anything. And after a while, you start correcting yourself and stop saying it. And then the next step is you stop thinking it too. And I don't really go in for that. With artists, the sort of like, I don't know if it's false humility or just beating yourself up about your work. It's not really useful. It's not really, and I have to say I do like my work now, you know? I mean, I really put a lot of work into it and I really think carefully about it. I often throw paintings out and redo them, but that's just part of the process, you know? And I love the paintings I throw out, you know, because they're part of building the painting that I keep.
Yeah.
I'm at a place where I do like my work. I just don't have enough time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very real struggle, and I get it, and I you know, we work through it, you know, we talk through it, we look at the work itself and isolate things that they genuinely do like. Like, well, I don't really like my work in general, but I do really like how I used pencil, or I do like how this particular piece came out. And so we try to find clues and then isolate what they like and then discuss the rest. And it doesn't happen often. Usually illustrators do like what they are doing. They're just feeling like it's not at a professional level, and then so that's one type of conversation. But this specifically is harder because I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know if I like my art personally.
Well, you know what was amazing, and I mentioned this already, but that oil painting class.
Yeah.
When you do oil painting, you realize there's no such thing as a bad painting. It's just not finished, right? Because oil,
oh yeah,
you just you're not done yet. So Giuseppe, I would ask you to look at those pieces that you're not happy with and they're just not finished. Like, keep working on the values, keep working on the compositions. That's the thing that really changed when I took that oil painting class. I was like, oh, there's no such thing as a bad painting. It's just not finished.
Yeah. No, I know. And I've had therapy sessions on the podcast before about my own personal relationship with my artistic self. So we're not going to go that deep into it. I think I've processed it enough, but it's not that I hate it though, too, right? Like, what I like about it, what I know I can guarantee is going to be enjoyable is the process. I love the sound of pencil on a paper. I love the smell of it. I'm just head over heels anytime I crack open a bottle of linseed oil and scrape the palette. I mean, that is good stuff right there. I will enjoy the hell out of that. It's really the end product that I look at and go, all right, do I like it? I don't hate it. So I guess I like it, but I'm not in love with it. And I guess there maybe is the answer. Do you have to be in love with the work that you do? I don't know if you do. I don't think you need to be in love with what you do. I don't know. What do you think?
Maybe it's like you said, the process. If you love the process. I mean, I've got this buddy, Jesse Jacobs, and he talks about how, you know, those days where you make something that's not working.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I'd be like, what a waste of time. But now I'm like, oh, that's just part of the process. You know, it's fine. I love those days now. They're just as valuable as the days that, you know, you finish the painting or you finish the piece or finish writing the thing. But yeah, those days where you take a detour or it's not working, it's just part of the process.
Absolutely.
And yeah, you're right. Like, there's something so cathartic just about brush hitting a paper.
Oh, it's the best. It's absolutely the best. I can tell you though, I say this to illustrators often, is, you know, you're going to be creating pieces. Your job is to create pieces, and not every piece is going to be a winner. There will be some pieces that you just follow through on, you finish, and you look at it and go, this isn't any good. I don't want to put this in my portfolio. That is not a waste of time. So I don't know if I like my work, but I do know that I'm not wasting my time every single time I do any kind of work. So see what I'm saying? Like, there are levels of the process that you can go, I like that. I know that painting and drawing is a great use of my time. Just mental health wise, it's just good to do. So that I like. So I don't know, maybe what I'm trying to say to illustrators who are listening is maybe don't conflate the entirety of a piece, the process of it, the ideation of it, the completion and critique post creation of it. Like, don't conflate it all into like one entity of something you either like or don't like. You do multiple things. Like, you're an editor, you do podcasts, and you're an illustrator.
Do you feel that way about, like, for instance, editing, which I know, at different periods you've done full time. So do you feel that way about editing? Do you have the same sense of, what's the word, skepticism about your editing abilities, or do you feel more confident about that?
Podcast editing?
I meant book editing, but
book art direction. Yeah. No. I enjoyed the entire thing. I never felt... I always liked what I did. Sometimes a little too much. Which led to some discussions. Sometimes so much so that I was called arrogant. At any rate, no. So I guess, again, it depends on what you do, which is why you, as a creator, not you, Matthew, but people who are creating stuff, artists, should not isolate the way they work. This is why I hate the piece of advice of how you have to work in one style, use one medium, et cetera, et cetera. You should be able to do all sorts of creative stuff, because some stuff you're going to really struggle with and have to work out a little harder, and other things are just going to come much more easily. Those things will help build confidence momentum, which can then help the other form of art that you're doing that's maybe a little tougher.
Let me say, nothing came easy to me. Color, painting, illustration, I wasn't good at any of it.
It looks like
writing.
It did, though. When I look at your Instagram and stuff, when I look at your books, it looks very much like it does come easy to you. So I assume that it comes easy to you, Matthew. That's what my assumption is.
Not at all. No, I mean, that's a highlight reel you're looking at.
Right?
No,
is that what it is?
Absolutely. It's heavily curated.
Ding.
I don't even
There's
post that
lesson.
much. I don't even post. Yeah. No, I mean, like, writing was years of, I have a folder of like 8 years of like bad ideas that I just I didn't know how to follow through on. But I will say the one thing that I did write was I took it seriously enough, or I mean, maybe serious isn't the right word, but I knew it was important enough that I had to persist and it was going to take work. So I worked through it,
Yeah.
Yeah, all of it. Drawing, even design. Like, I worked on Adventure Time for a couple of years, and only now the designs that I'm doing, I'm like, I like these designs. It's a really character design is so difficult. And prop design, it's insanely difficult, and so like meticulous, the work. But anyway, all of it's just like a ton of work, and we all know artists where it is actually super easy for them, like you're like, you're drinking drawing and they're just like whipping out masterpieces, and I'm just not that person, I'm not. Anyway,
I know I'm the kind of person that like opens up a sketchbook to a blank page. I put one line down, and my brain is already going like that's not what should
we've ruined this. That's why you keep the first page blank.
It's a perfectly beautiful white rectangle, and you ruined the hell out of it. Yeah.
I know. That's why I can even to this day I can only work on printer paper because if it's on a nice piece of paper for the sketches, I take it gets in my head. I have to work on just like printer paper, and the cheaper the printer paper, the better the drawing's gonna be.
Absolutely. I'm currently in like a Richard Scarry world at the moment.
Awesome.
I mean, what worlds? It's one of the best worlds to be in.
Sounds like a busy world.
Oh, nicely done, sir.
That's it, and we're done today.
I'm just writing a bio of him for Substack. It'll come out next week. Week after this recording. Anyway, according to his son, he drew and painted on acetate. And acetate isn't cheap, but it's not like fancy schmancy archival, handmade paper that's meant to go onto a museum wall. It's just this material that he used to paint all of his characters. And he would paint, let's say for the what's the title called? I'm currently researching this, and you'd think I'd have it fresh in my memory. The best word book ever. Mm-hmm. He would paint all the cats from beginning to end. Then he'd go back to the beginning, and then he'd paint all the dogs. And he'd go back to the beginning, and he'd paint all the other. Like, he would go one animal at a time because he wanted to make sure that his color was consistent throughout. Anyway, my point about the whole Richard Scarry thing is, and him, Don Freeman, like all of these classic artists, you read up about them and you hear that they're just drawing on scrap pieces of paper. Nothing that they're using is fancy schmancy.
Yeah.
I think even Richard Scarry used like basic Winsor Newton colors. It wasn't like a, I don't know, some fancy pigment from Holland or something. It was just whatever they had at hand.
Yeah.
John Steptoe, whatever he had at hand.
Yeah.
That's what they used, and that's what they created some of our favorite children's books. You know what I'm saying? So like, it doesn't have to be fancy. In fact, the less fancy, I posit, the less fancy the material, the better off you're going to be as an artist.
Remember when I started working in animation, I was shocked at these amazing artists would just be drawing on Post-it notes and like Rebecca Sugar and like,
oh yeah,
Adam Muto, and they'd just be like throwing these things in the garbage. And I was like, that's like I come from illustration where I'm like, that's a sacred thing.
Meanwhile, you have like a suitcase full of crumpled up Post-it notes.
Yeah, I actually,
I'm going to sell this.
Yuasa Masaaki, who's this amazing anime director, came and did an episode of Adventure Time, and he was throwing his watercolors in the garbage. So at the end of the day, I would go in and take them all.
100%.
So I now have, I've got a folder of original,
of course,
Masaaki Yuasa watercolors.
When I was working at Simon & Schuster, and a little bit at Penguin, but mostly at Simon & Schuster, we had licensor relationship with Nickelodeon. So a lot of the books that we were working on were Nickelodeon books. Part of the process at the time, now it's I'm sure all digital, was we would send the art in to Nickelodeon for their blue liners to correct and get the characters on model. SpongeBob, Dora, Wild Thornberries, all these other Rugrats. What was the one? Rocket Power. Anyway, they'd physically send back the blue lines, these like beautiful drawings of SpongeBob, of these characters, on top of the artwork that we had the illustrator create. And so we'd scan it, keep the blue lines, we'd scan the blue lines, and then email them to the illustrator. Or we'd send them to the illustrator, and then the illustrator would send them back to us with the blue lines to make sure that they were following the correction in the final art. My point is, in my basement, I have a box full of original physical drawings from the Nickelodeon animation team between the years of 1999 and 2010.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with any of it.
Frame it.
I kind of think so.
I think it's time to have an art show. No, that stuff is incredible. I mean, the artists that worked...
Time to start an Etsy page is what I'm talking
about.
The
artists that worked on SpongeBob in that era and Nickelodeon in general, they were all like classically trained, incredible artists.
Incredible drawings. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. We talk about the emotional language of color, but now like actually character design is more emotional. I think that's the influence of like manga and anime, but now we're less sacred about things being on model now, which is I think it's just more about, are we capturing the emotional moment for that character, which is way more fun. And I think I mean not those classic drawings are incredible, but I bet those artists would have loved to have gone off model too when they wanted to, but they kind of used to be like really religious about keeping things on model, but it's really nice thing that's changed in the industry in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That now it's just like whatever.
One of the reasons why I love the Christmas-tastic Carol book is because Emily Warren painted, the characters look like the characters. I would not consider them to be on model because the way she painted them was this very lush, painterly, classic.
Oh, wow.
And Cartoon Network was like, yeah, that's fine. Like, they didn't look at it and go, no, Finn's eye should be on the 2 millimeters to the right. They allowed us to just push that, and which is something that I think Cartoon Network was obviously really good at. And you're right. I think that's happening more and more. You just see characters getting all sorts of contorted, and big deal. Kids follow that. That's going back to like understanding the complexity of children. They're fine with that.
They get it. They know, like, manga, they get it when they're reading manga and a character changes shape or, becomes...
Right.
They get it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I was talking to Mike DiMartino of, Avatar and Korra fame on the podcast a couple months ago. And my son interviewed him at the end, and my son was telling, like,
how amazing,
talking to him about like how consistent the designs are for Aang and for the characters for Avatar and Korra throughout the seasons, and Mike was like, actually, they really weren't. Legend of Korra, for example, if you watch any episode, sometimes like the characters will like turn completely into a different character.
Yep.
Like a totally different character, totally different design. And you'd never skip a beat. You just go, yeah, okay. She's angry, so her face is going to look like that. It flattened out. It turned red. There's like lightning bolts coming out of her eyes. Yeah. Totally on model. No problem.
Yeah. It's like, remember those old Garfield designs?
Yeah.
The originals?
Yeah.
When I was a kid, it just blew my mind that this was the same character. I'm like, this is the same Garfield.
Old Garfield and new Garfield, and like what the Garfield of the 80s and what he sort of ended up looking like.
Yeah, the 70s Garfield.
Different.
He was like old and haggard when he started out. It was great. It was great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jim Field? Is it Jim?
Davis? Yeah.
Jim Field is another illustrator.
I wrote to Jim Davis when I was a kid. I was like such a huge Garfield fan, and he wrote back.
Oh gosh, do I need to reach out to him now? Shoot.
Oh my God, yeah, that would be amazing.
All right, I need to.
What a legend!
I'll go find him somewhere. Maybe he's on Facebook or something. Anyways, Matthew. So there are people listening who are like, I don't care about Garfield. What would be one last word? I know they should. Of wisdom, one piece of insight, something you would like to leave them with, say to them, from you to them.
I think as artists, don't let people pressure you into moving too fast, because no one's going to pick up your work in 5 or 10 years and say, wow, this is an incredible production schedule that you have here. I think like if you're feeling that something needs more time, it probably does need more time. Mm-hmm. And we as artists are the ones who have to sit with the work for the rest of our lives, you know? It's a really bad feeling when it's not what you know it could have been. Right. So I think take your time.
To learn more about Matthew, visit comingupforair.net. If you find value in this podcast, you can support it by subscribing to my best-selling Substack. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you will access hundreds of articles on the art, practice, and history of illustration, unlock bonus podcast episodes called Extra Credit, and connect with other members of the ID community. Join me on Substack by visiting illustrationdEpt.substack.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.